Let's go to line number one and say good afternoon to one of the contenders for the Liberal leadership full-time position and the member for Humber Valley, Dwight Ball. Good afternoon, Dwight. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you?
Great. I just wanted to call in and just respond to, I guess, the UARB comments that were made this morning as they released their report on the Maritime Link.
Yep.
And Paddy, I guess my reaction, I haven't read through the full report yet. It is an extensive document, of course, but really this is, to me, represents a very significant change in what we talked about in the House of Assembly and what was really discussed by NALCOR and Emera throughout the debate on the Maritime Link and indeed the development of Muskrat Falls. And I say that based on what they're looking for right now, or what Emera is looking for, and what the UARB is suggesting that would actually make this deal work on behalf of Nova Scotians, is that they would want a power purchase agreement for 35 years with the surplus power that was available from Muskrat Falls. So you ask yourself, what did government say? What was NALCOR saying publicly during the discussion about this surplus power? And of course, the answer to that has always been, this is power that we could actually pull back at any time and use it for industrial development in Labrador. Matter of fact, quite clearly on many occasions, the Premier and others have said that this may not even be enough power with all the potential that we've seen in Labrador, and that we would need more power. So this commitment, or this request today by the UARB, based on the premise that this would make this deal work for them, is certainly not something, and it flies in the face of what the discussion has been in our province here in Newfoundland and Labrador for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone could have predicted what the regulator in Nova Scotia would come back with in particular. Like, for instance, I had no earthly idea there was going to be any request to validate low-cost option with a long-term PPA, nor do I know what percentage of power, megawattage, or whatever that they're looking for in this long-term agreement. I don't know how it's going to play, to be honest with you, Dwight. But here's what I will say, and then you react to this, because I'm trying to get an understanding of this, as we all are, because it is a big document. If we were going to put power on that subsea cable, send it to Nova Scotia, does it matter to you or I, NALCOR, the province, the people of the province, if it's sold to Nova Scotia at market rates and or the northeastern United States at market rates? I don't see where the difference lies. In fact, I think, doesn't it mean there's more return, more revenue generated by selling it in Nova Scotia without having to pay the tariff to sell it for the same market rate in the northeastern United States?
Well, what they want is not only just access to this power, they want a commitment that is there for 35 years. So if you make that commitment to that surplus power, well, then you can't make the commitment twice. You can't then, on the other hand, make the commitment to the mining industry and industrial development in Labrador, which was one of the premise. Matter of fact, I went through some of the comments that were made in the House of Assembly, and it quite clearly states that we can pull back this power at any time. As a matter of fact, the Premier on many occasions said that we will not be signing a long-term power purchase agreement with Emera or with Nova Scotia because we may have to pull it back to support industrial development in the province. And this is a fundamentally this changes the fundamentals of this project. And this is the reason why I'm suggesting we need to get the House of Assembly open. So the Premier cannot agree to this deal, what we're talking about here today. We must add the option of pulling back this power for industrial development within our own province.
Yeah, and that's fair, because unless we know exactly what this so-called commitment entails, megawattage particular, then I don't know how we view it. Dwight, honest to God, I don't, because until we enter into those contractual conversations, I don't know what that's going to mean. And plus, at this whole time, if we don't have enough power to supply the hope to fuel further development in Labrador or otherwise, then it's a huge problem, and it makes it a way less attractive deal to have a partner in the mainland than it did in the past.
Well, the UARB quite clearly says that they want this lower price power, this market priced energy, so they can actually blend it into the higher price power from the Maritime Link, which is at 20%. So what they want to do is blend in both options so they can get lower power rates in Nova Scotia.
Right.
This same power would be used to fuel industrial development in Nova Scotia that we always said would fuel industrial development right here in Labrador and in our own province.
So you're saying if we build it, they will come?
Well, listen, this is what everybody has said. We've always said, matter of fact, I've said it many times.
Seriously, though, that's your point of view, though, is it, sir,
yes,
that if you build it, they will come?
What I've always said is that if we were to do Muskrat Falls, the surplus power must be used for economic development within our own province, not in a competing province, Paddy. This is a fundamental change to this whole project right now, and the UARB in Nova Scotia quite clearly says, without this surplus power, this is not the lowest cost option for Nova Scotians.
Well, that's not what they said. They said they don't know because they can't factor it in. Plus, I don't know how they're soothsayers in the first place. They didn't even access the so-called lowest cost option, which everybody here in the province who's opposed to Muskrat Falls said it was gas, when they have the infrastructure right in front of them today and still didn't choose gas as opposed to Muskrat Falls. So my point would be here, is the 500 megawatt cable, this is a question more than a point actually, is the 500 megawatt cable simply a transmission link where anywhere the power is generated in Newfoundland and Labrador can satisfy any contract we have? So it need to be Muskrat Falls power that can satisfy industry in Labrador. It could be Beta Spare, it could be a wind farm, it could be gas developed onshore. As long as we can generate the power and ship it over, that's all that counts, right?
Yeah, but we got to get it to Labrador, don't we, Paddy?
Well, not if it comes from Muskrat Falls. Well, we don't, though. If we keep Muskrat Falls power where it is, and you use other forms of generation to satisfy contracts through that link, it's 6 to 1, half dozen to the other, isn't it?
But what flies in the face there is we cannot develop any power on this island for less than 5 cents a megawatt. Yep. And this is what we're talking about here. The market-priced energy today is around 4 cents.
Yep.
So this is power that would go to Nova Scotia to fuel economic development in Nova Scotia, where we've always said Muskrat should be an economic development for us right here in our own province.
What's interesting inside of that is, do we think, and this would be to have your argument carry itself all the way through, would be that a guarantee of X amount of cents for power would be the linchpin on whether or not companies that need or want to produce natural minerals in the land in our province, that would be the breaking point for whether or not they came. If that's true, then what you say is absolutely right. I seem to think that the value of the mineral is so dependent on how much that commodity trades for, whether or not power becomes the be-all and end-all. I would suggest if that ore continues to do what it's even done in the recent past, it won't be if you pay 4, 5, 6 cents for power. It'll be how much they get for ore on the other side.
All I know is that power rates everywhere in the world, if you can give competitive power rates, and if you can give a rate that is much lower than what what you would have to compete against in other parts, this is a distinct advantage that you would have to attract. Matter of fact, this is something that we've always said. We could use our power to attract economic development, industrial development in Labrador. In this case here, we would be shipping away power for less than 5 cents, as I said, when we know right here in our own province it would be 15.3 cents at a bare minimum.
Yeah, the billet and they will come is an interesting point, and I don't know what this means in the future, Dwight, so far as any hopes or aspirations for Gull would be concerned either. This is going to be tricky, and I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to give you this point that has been now made just while we're talking. Churchill Falls, Hydro-Quebec is taking CFLCO to court based on the constitutionality or the legitimacy of the water sharing agreement, water management agreement, which is a huge problem, way more significant than anything to do with what a regulator, non-binding decision that the regulator makes.
Exactly, but all I'm saying today is this is a significant change in what was discussed in this Muskrat Falls power. We never did anticipate that we would end up having to sign a 35-year commitment for this surplus power that we've always said that we would use to fuel our economy right in our own province. And right now, what they're asking for is that we send that all to Nova Scotia for 35 years. That is a fundamental change in this agreement, and I believe that the Premier should say no to this, and we should get back into the House of Assembly and let's discuss this fully.
I'd like to hear it all talked through, Dwight, because that's all that really counts there. The knee-jerk reactions, not you, sir, but many have to these types of things when they're far more complicated than everyone gives them credit for, is why we're in the mess we're in, I would suggest. And
I agree. Let's not make...
Hear it flushed out is all we can only hope for.
I agree, Paddy. Let's make sure we don't repeat some of the mistakes of our past. And right now, we need to have a very open and frank discussion on this project again.
And I look forward to having that with you and anyone else who cares to call the program. Good luck on the campaign trail. Dwight, next time we talk, we'll dig into that race as well as any other issue of concern to you and others.
Appreciate it, as always, Paddy.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dwight Ball, member for Humber Valley, and of course, one of the, I would suggest, leading contenders for the Liberal leadership job coming up. Lots to discuss today, but this is a significant event. The Nova Scotia ruling, important, no question. But the fact that the water management agreement is now going to be before the courts, brought there by Hydro-Quebec, That's tricky stuff. This is what Caban has been talking about all along. It has been referenced in other forums. Hydro-Quebec has not looked for standing in some of these panels leading up to developing Muskrat Falls. And for everyone who pretends Quebec is the boogeyman, that's not fair and that's kind of stupid. But for everyone who pretends that there's some sort of willing, helpful, mutually beneficial partner to get in bed with, that's also the heights of foolishness. It is. And if you think different, you're on the wrong team.